On today's program, a subscriber to the channel self-owns. A man who learned all about D&D's past fails to learn from his own. Mr. Wargaming says the stupid part out loud, and the BroSR shows their rump. Hello everyone and welcome to Intelligence as a Dump Stat, where we examine all the most spectacular intellectual failures of the TTRPG social media world for the past week. Boy, howdy, are we spoiled for choice this week. So much stupid that I've had to selectively edit this list, and I'm going to have to keep the details light on what did make it just 4 times' sake. Fortunately, like my 280ZX, it appears the failure to start is carrying over into the coming weeks. So if you don't see your personal favorite color of verbal diarrhea in the video, be sure to drop it in the comment section, especially if it's still going on in some comment section or X war somewhere out there on the internet. I would love to catch up on that. If it spans 2 weeks, maybe I can get a little bit extra mileage out of it. This week, Planet Dumbass seems to be tidally locked in orbit around Planet Shadowdark. Surely Sandy Peterson said some stupid things about alignment and timekeeping and some rare missteps from the Call of Cthulhu designer, and the Trench Crusade woke scold idiocy is in full swing. But the honest truth is that this time, Kelsey really is sucking all of the air out of the room, as is evident by the lack of oxygen supplied to the brains of some of these people. Seriously, April Fool's Day is right around the corner, but these guys are dead set on celebrating regular Fool's Day 24/7. I'm going to start with the only non-Shadowdark adjacent conflict to make this week's list, min-maxing. There were 2 particularly bad takes on min-maxing this week. Corpse Kings posted a D&D 2E DMG segment highlighting the issue of min-maxing, and this led to 2 imbecilic and diametrically opposed responses. First, Clerics Wear Ringmail popped in with, quote, min-maxing occurs when game designers are too lazy to appropriately balance mechanical complexity of their games, unquote, before calling for their unrealistically extreme vetting of an unrealistically complex system or a move to having only rules-light games. This from someone who has apparently never even gone through the beginning process of understanding how a game design works. Then, on the other end of the spectrum is Mr. Wargaming, who chimes in with, quote, min-maxing is role-playing. Anyone who says otherwise is just mad at people who are better at the game than them, unquote. This based off of the less meta-commentary that trying to figure out the best way to work a situation and wait it out in your favor is exactly what people in a real situation would do. These are both idiotic takes. These games are built on abstractions. You know why? Because in order for it not to be built on abstractions, you would need mechanics for absolutely every minute eventuality. And unless you're God Almighty creating the game system that we call the universe, you have just taken on a literally impossible task. Wherever there are abstractions, there are exploitations. We rely on an understanding that everyone will approach the table taking the spirit of the game in mind and making decisions that reflect a more realistic and balanced character, rather than one who only exists because they know certain realities will never crop up in the game. No, this is not a failure of design and poor playtesting. It is understanding that while we all know it's better to max out 3 skills, rely on others to max out their skills, and for everyone to just ignore the more situational skills, we instead make our characters merely excellent in the key areas, while throwing points in a few other situational abilities and attributes, because in real life we would have to at least have some education and talent in areas apart from our chosen specialties. While we're at it, no, it is not good gameplay or role-playing to min-max a character, for the same reasons. Just because you can make some poor excuse of a justification to make it seem more reasonable doesn't change the fact that you are trying to make a character who puts no points into ass wiping so he can put more points into sword fighting simply because he knows that the GM will never ask him to face a porta potty mimic. Okay, time for Shadowdark. I'll start with our resident cell phone. To protect the guilty from those too lazy to look in the comment section of older videos to find him, a fine chap going by Lan stated that he may have in fact used intelligence as a dump stat himself, and it stems from a comment on a very lengthy 3-part review of Shadowdark on Cold Light Press. Following part 3 of this lengthy breakdown, Lan dropped an equally lengthy comment, largely bemoaning that the reviewer's focus on the mechanical flaws and failings in Shadowdark, owed largely to a lack of crunch and a few mathematical breakdowns in the system itself, actually misses the point that Shadowdark is a largely narrative-driven game system that is designed to give the GM flexibility and freedom to quickly adapt and keep the game moving. This brought on a response filled with a litany of logical fallacies, pathetic wannabe alpha chat insults, and general internet-style keyboard warrioring from another commenter. I do want to make it clear it was not the author of the blog post or the review who did this. It was some random moron. And you know the kind of shit I'm talking about. The kind of shit that people only say from behind a keyboard because if they said it in person, it would likely end with them getting a chair smashed over their head. As Robert Howard once penned, the savage tends to be more courteous than the civilized man because the civilized man knows that he won't have his head split as a matter of course. Same can be said for internet warrioring because the person on the internet tends to say things the person in person won't say because he knows that he won't get his face busted in as a matter of course. But where old Lan used intelligence as a dump stat is he decided to engage with this nitwit, giving him the attention that he so clearly desires, but never gets from his peers, his boss, or anyone born with a vagina. Bad move, dude, you fed the trolls. Anyone who wants to join Lan under the bridge with the trolls, I'll leave a link to the blog post and the resulting exchange in the description of the video. The comments are as long as this video script, so I won't be diving into the rantings of a guy who probably gave the Fresh and Fit podcast clowns his credit card info. Now we finish strong. This is technically 2 targets, but they're somewhat intertwined. Apparently Kelsey, over at the Arcane Library, said Braunstein in the mirror 3 times and summoned the twin-headed demon of additional chromosomes, the BroSR and Griff Morgan over at Secret of Blackmoor. Of course, the bros are on their usual kick of trying to claim that this is just another example of someone recognizing what they did 10,000 years ago when Jeffro read the patterns in Gary Gygax's ass hairs and discovered the one true way of gaming correctly, while also claiming that they are actually playing Gary's game more correctly than Gary, and that Braunstein is actually their creation, while simultaneously saying that Shadowdark is only for simps and chills and tourists. And while Rump DM could be the entire video himself this week with the never-ending stream of BroSR idiocy that he's puked out onto X, his crowning achievement in stupid is spearheading the Jeffro cult worship Braunstein claims as they result Shadowdark. Yeah, they just love the fact that this game that is kind of bridging the gap between the modern gamer and the OSR and whatnot has mentioned something that they're very obsessive about, and it's all your favorite BroSR contradictions. The way it always was supposed to be, the way it always was forever, but also the way that they're the only ones who ever did it right and discovered it for the first time, a few years ago when Jeffro Johnson, read the auguries and the peanuts in his turds or whatever, wherever he pulled his nonsense out of. Anyway, Rump DM seems to be the one who is spearheading this spew of nonsense, but he's out there pushing and claiming all the Braunstein credit he can get his little grubby mitts on. But the bros pale in comparison to Griff. The man in charge of Secrets of Blackmore got firmly told exactly where he could go off to and what he could do when he got there a year or so ago when he threatened Harmony Ginger with a completely frivolous lawsuit over the term Braunstein. Now this ass clown appears to be setting himself up to try and extort licensing fees from Kelsey for mentioning it in relation to Shadowdark. He even went so far as to file a trademark on the term. I dedicated videos to this before, as did several others, including folks like Roll of Law, who is an actual IP litigation attorney, when he was discussing the OGL. You cannot trademark or copyright game mechanics. Trademarking a word is extremely weak and borderline unenforceable in the best of situations. But Braunstein is the name of a town, a real town, and it also happens to have been part of the common parlance in this context for almost 60 years. This idiot filed for a trademark like a week ago. It hasn't even been remanded to the review process yet, where I would encourage anyone to challenge it in its use in business. It's free. Just go make the challenge that it's been used in TTRPGs and you've used it in some kind of printing or something before. The BroSR can actually be useful for once in this by stepping up and saying that in Jeffro Johnson's books and in BroSR and all this other stuff, they've talked about Braunsteins. This is detestable behavior on the part of Griff, and if David Wesley is in on it, he should be banished from the memory of the hobby, a footnote about a game once ran in the 1970s. But if not, he needs to tell Griff to pound sand. This is just an attempt to show up at Kelsey's door and say, give me a few $1,000s to license this word, or I will cost you tens of thousands in court, proving that I have absolutely no right to charge those fees. Either Griff is a grifter practicing lawfare, or he's an idiot who is too stupid to listen to everyone telling him he has no legitimate claim here. There is no in between. Well, that's all I got this week. Check the description for some relevant links on all these wonderful topics right after you hit that like button and leave a comment below. Be on the lookout later this week for my video on XP and advancement. This time, it's milestone leveling that gets grilled. I'll see you guys next time.